Most people think that the anxiety comes from what's happening around them. It doesn't. For example, if the same emotions keep showing up in your life, like the same stress, the same fear, the same unhealthy relationships, it's not bad luck, it's a pattern. And the uncomfortable truth is, most people think that they're making choices consciously. They're not. And it was the same for me, because for years I thought that the world around me is dangerous, even hostile, and unpredictable. But what I didn't realize is that my nervous system had simply learned to expect danger everywhere. And of course, that changed my entire life. My name is Snezhana Rose. I am a certified RTT practitioner and hypnotherapist. And in this series, I'm going to share with you real patterns, both from my life and from my clients' lives. And I just want to show you that RTT is not magic, but simply a practical subconscious work. Many years ago, when I was a young adult, I suffered from intense anxiety and stress, and everything felt very unknown and everything felt threatening. So I was constantly expecting something bad to happen. Well, it's not a nice feeling. And so when your nervous system lives in the survival mode long enough, your body actually starts speaking the language of stress. And eventually, my health collapsed. So I went to the doctors and I had every test imaginable, like blood tests and scans and examinations. But the interesting thing is that every single result came back normal. And so on paper, I was absolutely healthy. But inside, I wasn't well at all. And this is where so many people get trapped because they think the issue is something is wrong with me physically. But often the deeper issue is that your mind and nervous system have become conditioned to live in a state of threat. And for me, it's like a fire alarm that keeps going off, even there's no fire at all. And the body reacts, and the symptoms are very real. But the original pattern sits much deeper. And at that time, one doctor just casually asked me, like, have you ever tried hypnotherapy? And you see, it wasn't a prescription at all, it was just a suggestion. And that single moment changed the direction of my life because for the first time, I started asking myself, what if the problem isn't only physical, like I used to think? What if the subconscious mind is involved? Back then, there wasn't much information available. Um, so I started reading everything I could find about subconscious mind, about stress patterns, about nervous system. And I experienced and tried different techniques. And of course, some worked and some didn't, but everything was really helpful. And slowly, little by little, something started changing. Not dramatically, and of course, not overnight. And that's actually important to mention that real change usually happens quietly. And actually, I've got a story how I realized that something is happening. Once I was getting back home from university. It was evening, it was probably bad weather, and I was exhausted, stressed, hungry, emotionally drained. And as I was getting nearer to my parents' house, I suddenly noticed something. I had a choice. was such an amazing moment, light bulb moment. I realized that I could walk through the door right now, exhausted, irritated, and negative, and subconsciously I would receive comfort and attention and sympathy, or I could just walk in differently, and maybe even I could smile and be grateful and feel warmth instead of stress. And at that moment, something clicked. That was an amazing moment. I realized that between what happens to us and how we react, there is space. And inside that space, there is choice. And that realization just completely changed the way I saw myself. Because I started noticing patterns everywhere. Like, why do some people constantly end up in painful relationships? Or why do some people always expect rejection? And why do some people sabotage opportunities just before the success? And usually it's not random, it's very familiar because the nervous system repeats what it knows, even even when it hurts. That's the most amazing fact. And so later I saw the same pattern in my clients again and again. And for example, I worked with people who kept changing relationships, but every relationship felt emotionally absolutely the same. It was a different person, but it would lead to the same emotional outcome because the subconscious mind wasn't choosing consciously, it was choosing familiarity. And this is where RTT became really important for me because not because it's magic and not because it instantly fixes people, though the results are amazing. RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy, is practical subconscious work, and it helps people observe patterns they couldn't previously see. And of course, it helps connect symptoms to deeper emotional conditioning. And what is, well, I consider mostly important is as it helps nervous system stops replaying old emotional programs automatically. That's it. Not mind controlling, not miracle healing. It's just awareness, it's just observation and repeating. And so for me personally, RTT feels like someone finally organized years of psychological understanding into a clear structure. Because before that, I spent nearly 20 years trying to understand how change actually happens. And I studied psychology, behavior patterns, language learning, communication. But one thing became very obvious to me is the fact that people don't change simply because they talk about problems. Actually, what happens? Awareness matters. But of course, awareness alone is not always enough, and sometimes people spend years repeating the same story, while the subconscious patterns underneath stay untouched. And so RTT works differently because it tries to access the root pattern itself and not just the symptom. And here's something practical you can start doing immediately. Start observing your emotional defaults. For example, you can ask yourself, what emotions does my mind automatically return to? Is it stress, pressure, fear, guilt, rejection? Because most people think that life is happening to them, when very often the nervous system is just simply recreating familiar emotional states automatically. But once you notice the pattern, something powerful happens. You just stop identifying with every emotional reaction and you begin observing life as it is. You start observing it instead, and that creates space. And space creates choice. And even small awareness can completely shift the direction of your life over time. And of course, it won't be instantly and not magically, but steadily. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see back then. My anxiety wasn't proof that I was broken. It was just a learned response. But the good news is that learned responses can change. And that's why I say RTT is not magic. It's a practical way of understanding the subconscious patterns that's already running in your life. Because once you see the pattern, you stop being controlled by it. And that changes everything. And if this resonates with you, my friends, I work with people using RTT and subconscious repatterning. And in the next episode, I will answer more questions and I will share more real examples of how these patterns quietly running in everyday lives. See you then.